You're listening to Blast Podcasting, episode 19.
Joker review.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Blast Podcasting. I'm Xander.
And this is Anthony. And Xander, I have to ask you something. I hear you got some announcements to make concerning the future of this podcast. Don't worry, it's nothing bad, folks. The podcast is still going on. But it's a good announcement, right?
Yeah, it's really good. I've had a lot of listener feedback. A lot of people have asked us since we started the show if Blast Podcasting was going to be on something other than YouTube. They've been like, hey, when's it going on iTunes? When's it going on Spotify? Is it going to be on Stitcher? iHeartRadio. Well, the great news is this is our debut episode on all these platforms right now. Right now, I'm doing a platform called Launchpad DM, and I would say if you're starting a podcast, this is an excellent site to use as kind of like your hub RSS feed to spread your podcast through multiple platforms. And this is going to be our debut episode, so if you're a new listener and you're checking us out on Spotify or iTunes or iHeartRadio or Stitcher, welcome to the show, guys. And if you want to listen to archived episodes, because this is episode 19, we have like 18 more episodes. If you want to check that out, you can check us out on our YouTube channels. That's youtube.com/XanderScullion. And Anthony, your YouTube?
MagusX1.
Exactly. You guys can check those out, and you can check out all of our archive episodes there. But with that, I'm really excited. It's gonna be great. And speaking of exciting, we got a new trailer last night.
Yep. We got a new trailer
for Star Wars.
Star Wars, yeah, episode 9. Yeah, and if you want to know our thoughts on Star Wars, go back to episode 2 from last year. I think we still stand where we stand on that.
Yeah. Star Wars is such a tricky thing because despite everything that's happened with like The Last Jedi, and I still have like a love for Star Wars. Like I still like Star Wars a lot. What did you think about the trailer, Anthony? Like, did you feel like this is kind of J.J. Abrams' apology for The Last Jedi?
It looks badass, but here's the thing. It's still fucking Disney, and I'm not the biggest fan of Disney, to be honest, guys.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is it... Let's be honest, The Last Jedi trailer, was that cool?
Yes, it was.
But the movie, not so much.
Exactly.
I know, I'm a sourpuss on Star Wars, but there's some amazing fucking visuals in it and such. And yeah, it's funny. My friends and I tell my friend, because we went to go see, what was it? We went to go see Jay and Silent Bob reboot, and which wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. It's better than the trailer, but it's not like, oh my god, best comedy ever.
Yeah.
But anyway, I tell him, dude, are we gonna go see? I said, I don't really think I'm gonna go see Star Wars. He goes, yeah, dude, we are. And I go, yeah, we'll probably will. That's probably what happens.
Yeah,
with that said,
no, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Sam.
I was about to say, oh, jeez.
Sam, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say I'm definitely probably going to get. Actually, no probably about it. I'm going to go see Star Wars. I'm going to see it just because I like to see Star Wars in theaters. Like even if it's a bad one,
yeah.
I mean, we don't know what exactly this movie's going to be. It's got a lot of questionable things. Like I'm not a big fan of the Emperor coming back. That's my thing. I'm not a big fan of that. Because I feel like it kind of defeats the whole purpose of the original trilogy, and it kind of makes what happened to Vader completely in vain. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, and then I heard the rumors of time travel, and what the fuck is time travel in Star Wars?
Yeah.
I mean, Star Trek has time travel. That works in it. They don't use it all the time, but they use it enough for it to be kind of a stable plot device they can use every now and then. But Star Wars, what the hell?
Yeah. I mean, I did see one thing that was kind of interesting And that was in the trailer. It shows Kylo Ren and Rey destroying the statue, and everyone's talking about Rey holding on to this dagger. And the dagger, they're thinking that maybe the dagger to Darth Mortis. And if that's the case, then that would explain C-3PO's kind of like goodbye to everyone and his red eyes. Because here's the thing: there's a little bit of a leak going on. Slight, maybe a spoiler. We don't know. People are wrong about these theories, but they're saying that C-3PO gets his memory wiped clean because they're using C-3PO to kind of get into the Sith database with the Mortis dagger. How does that play into story? We're not sure, but I mean, it is kind of interesting that we saw in this trailer C-3PO's being like, "I'm looking at my friends for the last time," kind of thing, and then like in the other trailer, he's got like red eyes.
Yeah.
And also, I'm still wondering what exactly is up with like the Sith Rey that we saw in the last trailer. Like they show a Sith Rey, and this one they don't show her. They're a little bit more apt about talking about Palpatine, even though they don't really show him. They showed a throne. There's a scene where you can see Rey, and it looks like she's confronting someone in a robe for a split second. Some people are saying that's Palpatine. Some people are saying it's like other things, but. Yeah, the whole thing with Palpatine coming back, like I said, overall, I feel like that makes Darth Vader's and Anakin's saga like in vain. Because of course, we're gonna have bad guys in Star Wars. Like that's the drama. We're always gonna
have to.
Yeah, you're gonna always have bad guys. But the whole thing about the Last Jedi or Return of the Jedi, I should say. The whole thing about Return of the Jedi was the return of Anakin Skywalker and defeating the Sith. And this is like, oh, well, yeah, we defeated him, but yeah, he's back.
The problem with this new trilogy, Xander, I think you nailed it, is there's a sense of redundancy in this new trilogy, my bad. And even with Last Jedi, it was trying to be its empire, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem. Say what you will about the prequels. At least the prequels had a very different plot than the original trilogy.
Yeah.
And they should have made these movies vastly different and made new bad guys. In fact, you look at the expanded universe, which I know a little bit about, and in the expanded universe, there are the Republic was reborn after the Rebellion won.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a development forward, and the rebels were actually remnants of the Empire. So they kind of switched roles and all that, and they introduced new characters. And as the books went along, they introduced a whole new group of villains. From what I heard, was these insect aliens that the Force didn't work on.
Yeah.
They were these insect aliens that were immune to the Force. So I mean, they made all these, and they can manipulate the Force against people. So they made all these new villains in this expanded universe, but these movie trilogies didn't do anything like that.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like Disney is definitely always been trying to play it safe. The Last Jedi, I think that was them at that point not playing it safe and trying to do their own thing. But the thing is they're doing their own thing and they had no idea what to do. Because The Force Awakens, looking back, I don't like it as much as I did when I first saw it. But it wasn't.
Same here.
It wasn't a bad movie. It really wasn't. And it kind of like, I'm like, okay, we got this new guy, Snoke. Who's Snoke? This is mysterious, And then you have the remnants of, the original trilogy with, Han Solo and Princess Leia, Chewbacca. So you got that little nostalgia going in there, and you have introduction of new characters. And then, you had that last scene at Force Awakens with Luke with the lightsaber, and you're just like, oh my God. And then the movie stops. And then in The Last Jedi, best metaphoric way ever, that scene was completely shot down with Luke throwing the lightsaber behind him. That was his dad's fucking lightsaber. It's like, what the hell, So The Last Jedi was this a mess. I mean, they killed off Snoke. Is Snoke going to be something, a part of the new movie, or the Rise of Skywalker? Are we gonna find
Who the
out what's?
fuck was he?
Yeah,
Who the fuck was he? Why was he important? At least in with the Emperor, they hint in the if without the prequels that he was a former senator who took over.
yeah,
Yeah, but who the fuck was Snoke? We know why did he form this group? What the fuck? Why does he have force powers?
yeah.
Who the fuck was Snoke?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Like Snoke, and where the fuck is the Knights of Ren? We've been hearing about the
Yeah,
Knights of Ren, and like, where are they?
we heard about it before even episode 7 came out.
Yeah,
We heard about the Knights of Ren, and it's like, what is this? And of course, don't if you're hardcore Star Wars, don't go tell me if you want to find out Snoke, go read his novel. No, don't. He should have at least explained a little bit in the movie. I don't need to go and read a fucking novel
yeah,
about Snoke, nor would I want to because he's not that interesting. It seems. Well, maybe he would be, but that's not my point. I shouldn't
yeah,
have to read a book.
yeah. It should be a little bit more narrative to it, especially killing them off like they did with nothing really being answered. But I think before we move on, I will say, so are you excited, Anthony, or are you just curious about the new Star Wars?
The trailer was good.
Mm-hmm.
So it got me a little excited, but I still have trepidations about it. A lot of trepidations about it, my bad. And I will probably go see it. I'm more curious, I think, than I am excited, to be quite honest.
That's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I'm at that point where it's just like, well, I've seen them all anyway. Might as well go see this one. I'm excited, and I like that J.J. Abrams is back on front because, like I said, Force Awakens wasn't a bad soft reboot from Disney. I just hope that a lot of questions, I hope a lot of them get answered. And if this is, indeed the quote unquote last of the saga, I hope it has a good ending to it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, let's see what happens. I really don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Trying to
So,
sell toys and theme park rides.
yeah, which I heard hasn't been doing very well.
But
So,
going back to a show that I've been really interested in that you've been watching, I wanted you to talk about is the new Watchmen show. It was on HBO, right?
yep. Yes, sir, and I watched it I watched it yesterday on demand because I have HBO, and it's pretty fucking good. I will definitely not spoil this one because it's still new.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what's interesting about Watchmen now at this point is it's got 2 sequels. But when everyone says, "Oh, 2 sequels," it's the second and third. No, they've got 2 separate sequels essentially. I know they've said this is a remix or whatever. This is a sequel to the original comic book. This series is hands down a sequel to the comic. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and what I mean by that is essentially my fucking iPad, Xander. I have to tell the story. When I was saying this series, I got a new iPad. Siri went fucking on.
I heard it in the background.
Yeah, I had to shut her up. But in this series, um, in this television series, it is a sequel to Watchmen set in 2019. So it's set a good 30 or so years after, 35 years, I think, after the original.
Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, in the comics, you have Doomsday Clock, which is also a series to the original comic book. However, that one is about the Watchmen characters clashing with the DC universe.
Hmm.
So, and that it's really good, actually. I mean, I was very skeptical of it. It's written by Jeff Johns, who's one of my favorite comic writers, but it is actually really well done. And it makes perfect sense and then you go to this series, and this is a sequel. Remember, though, these sequels represent the original ending to Watchmen in the comic. The ending to Watchmen in the movie is different, but the same but different. Does that make sense?
Yeah. There's
Okay.
subtle differences.
Well, no, the ending's a big difference. Because you read the comic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll say it because it's the movie's over what 10 years old at this
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
and the series is in the comic book is over 30. In the comic book, to stop nuclear war, Ozymandias, he created a big, huge alien mutant creature, and he teleported it into New York. And when the creature died, it used a telepathic wave to wipe out a good amount of the population, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because it's the squid monster. And then if you go back to the movie, he uses Dr. Manhattan, a wave that simulates Dr. Manhattan, to do the same thing.
Hmm.
So essentially, he does the same thing in the movie as he does in the comic, but different methods. And then, of course, in the movie, Night Owl gets pissed when Manhattan kills Rorschach and stuff like that. In the comic, that's not. He ends up sleeping with fucking uh, Silk Spectre again while that's all happening. So yeah, it's real weird. But the movie is a sequel. The TV series is also a sequel to the book because. Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
That's kind of a little bit of a spoiler. I'm not going to give the big spoiler though, obviously. Um, Sometimes when it rains squids.
Huh.
So there's still an effect of the squid monster going on.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and then the big thing in this series is it touches a lot on race.
Yeah.
Race is a big thing. It actually opens with a historical event, the Oklahoma Tulsa riot, which actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big part of the series. So it's really fucking good. I'm pretty happy with it. So there's that. I think it's off to a really good start. I wish I could say more than I did, but I won't. But yeah, it's off to a really, really good start, and I think this is going to be the next big HBO thing going on right now, along with Westworld, because they don't have Game of Thrones anymore, obviously.
Yeah, and you know the thing is too. I've always loved the Watchmen movie. I know a lot of people, including my sister, because I went to go see Watchmen with my sister and my brother-in-law at the time. They're no longer married, but we all went to go see Watchmen, and we went to go see it. And I remember when that movie was over, I was like, "Holy shit, that was amazing!" And them, on the other hand, they were just like, "What? This was not the kind of movie we were expecting." And I think that's what I like about Watchmen is Watchmen is a different kind of superhero movie. It's not a Marvel movie, you know. It's not Iron Man. It's more of a dark kind of realistic. If superheroes actually existed, this is probably how they would act, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Without getting too superficial like the X-Men. You know, it gets kind of that way in some aspects. But I really liked it. I liked Watchmen. I'm looking forward to the series. I don't have HBO, but, you know, I'll definitely find a way and check it out because, like I said, I liked Watchmen. So,
It is. Watchmen is really, if you look at it, if you look with Alan Moore's pieces, it's really a sort of not sequel, but a spiritual follow up to Miracle Man.
yeah.
And that's the thing. Both of those are very deep stories. Alan Moore is a pretty good fucking writer. His stories always have a lot of depth to them. You know, he does get dark. Even Killing Joke, you know, that has a lot of depth to it. His two Superman stories are say a lot too. I mean, he's just a great writer. I don't agree with him. I don't agree with him on his views on the comic book industry,
Mm-hmm.
but I think he is overall a pretty fucking good writer. And Watchmen is really one of it's a testament to comic books. I mean, I started reading it a little bit again after watching the series, and I got into it quick. So,
Yeah,
but
I need to go back and
oh,
read the graphic novel. I haven't read it in
oh
years.
yeah, yeah, you do. It's really good. So Xander, being that Watchmen is dark and realistic, that's not the only dark and realistic comic book movie out right now. Well, comic book thing out right now, right?
Yeah, it's actually, you know, the main topic of the episode. And I do want to say this is going to be a spoiler review. And, Joker has been out long enough that I feel like the people that really wanted to see the Joker have already seen it. If you're one of those people like, oh, I'm just going to wait for it to go on, Redbox, I'll just rent it one day. The world isn't going to stop for you. I'm sorry. I hate to sound rude about that, but, media's already been talking about it. It's been out for a while, and you and I were like, okay, we got to talk about Joker, because I know we've talked about Joker a little bit in previous episodes when they first, started announcing the movie with Joaquin Phoenix and stuff like that.
We've been talking about it since we started this show.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we've really been talking about it since probably November of last year. I remember we brought it up a lot when we did our Aquaman review.
Yes, we did.
Earlier this year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So my whole thing on that is, I don't know, man. It's something that's been part of our narrative for the podcast, and we get to end that narrative today. So
exactly. Now, yeah, the Joker, or just Joker. I keep wanting to call it the Joker, but Joker. The story is kind of interesting because it's not quote unquote following any sort of comics. Even though I think you can agree that there's definitely some comic influences in this movie. Following Arthur Fleck, who is, this kind of guy that's down on his luck, taking care of his mom. He's working, a clown temp service. Like, that's what it looked like to me. Like, he was, like, working as a clown. But, beginning of the movie, he's a sign guy. And then, at one point he's inside of a children's hospital and trying to make people laugh, and that's something else, that he has some weird condition where it's an actual condition. It's actually being looked at more, like people are finding out more about that. There's a condition where people laugh, they can't control their laughter when they have a lot of anxiety or they're really upset. He has that, and a lot of people have been talking about how dark this movie is. I mean, how would you say, Anthony? Is it a pretty dark movie?
Oh, fuck yeah, it is. And that's why I loved it. I mean, look, we cannot put ourselves in a box with superhero movies. And I think that's what people have been trying to do to emulate the MCU. You cannot do that. And we need more films like this. And Logan.
Yeah.
Is another one. And I think, yeah, we need films that really break it down. I think that's why, like, the Watchmen TV series that we just talked about is great, and why Joker is great. And yeah, Joker is a very complicated film too. It has a lot of red herrings in it, mm-hmm. that really, when they are revealed to be as red, well, they has one big red herring. So let me give you this example real quick, Xander. Okay?
Yeah.
Joker lives across the hall from a woman who's a single mother,
mm-hmm.
and he ends up when he murders a few guys in the subway, which we'll talk about. I'm sure that's a key important scene too.
Yeah,
and he gets confidence, so he goes and he kisses her, and they become a couple. And you see her with him in several situations, like one out for a date, one at a diner, and then his mother is in the hospital, and she's there waiting for him. And it's all there. But then he goes into the apartment, and she freaks out, and it's revealed that his relationship with her was all in his fucking head.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, because I was like, she seemed too one-dimensional in those scenes, mm-hmm. with him. And I was wondering, this guy is dejected by everybody. Why would she date him anyway? But it makes sense how they did that.
Yeah, because, I mean, you think about it, when they first encountered each other, they were in the elevator. And, she kind of did that whole, like, gun to her head, like, blowing her brains out, like, oh, my God, kill me now. Because the building's, like, put to shit. Because right now, in that movie, Gotham's on a sanitation strike. So Gotham just looks like shit. There's like trash bags everywhere. Like no one's picking up after themselves. And she's just like, oh my God, shoot me now. And then when they get out and he's like, hey, and she turns around and he does the same thing, but he does it like really graphic. And she just kind of looks at him like, what the fuck? And goes back. Like it's like right after that happened. Then it's like, oh, well, what are you doing tonight? Like it was like a really weird like forced love story, and I was just kind of like, this is kind of weird, you know?
Yeah, it felt like this doesn't fit in the movie, but it made sense though the way they did it in the end.
Yeah, because
It
very
felt like it was one. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was about to say because very early on we find out that we already see some of his illusions in his head, like when he was, with his mom and that show came on, the talk show with Robert De Niro. When that came on and he was like in the crowd and he was talking about his mom and the host was like, "Oh, you're such a good son," and blah blah, and then you find out it was just all in his head. So very early on in the movie, you have the social worker, counseling him, and then you have like this apparent, very very apparent, like extra world that he lives in. You know.
Yeah, yeah, and it's crazy how that all works out for him too,
Mm-hmm.
with the world he lives in. That Robert De Niro plot is interesting because there's two key influences to that. Now that you bring that up, this film reminds me of two things. The thing with the situation with the talk show host, Martin Scorsese's King of Comedy, and Dark Knight Returns. Now, King of Comedy, you've never seen that, correct?
Right.
Okay. So with King of Comedy, it's a Scorsese film, ironically enough, starring Robert De Niro. And he plays a failed comedian who loses it. And to get attention, he goes after and he abducts a similar talk show host played by Jerry Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one element. And then the other element is in Dark Knight Returns, Joker actually kills the host of a talk show, of a late night show, and he kills all the people in there.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah. So there's two elements with the talk show host that you can simply see. I know it's a reference to King of Comedy because they got De Niro as the host and he was in King of Comedy. So I don't
He,
know what you think about that though.
I was like, he was also in Taxi Driver, which is another parallel that a lot of people have drawn for the inspiration of Joker. A lot of people have compared it to Taxi Driver.
Yep. Yep. And he's involved in this movie.
Very, very much involved. That's getting to like something that I didn't like about the movie. And I do change my opinion on it, but I do want to mention it for the sake of the review. That talk show scene at the very end, when him and the host are kind of confronting each other. At first, I was just kind of like, man, this is the part where the movie gets kind of like unrealistic. I mean, not saying the movie is like very realistic, but it's a lot more realistic than most superhero movies. But it was getting to the point where like he was talking about all the people like the three guys he killed in the subway. He was talking about that. He was talking about this, that, and it was just getting to the point where it's just like, okay, they're probably going to turn him off, because it's live television. They're going to turn him
Right.
off. But they kept going and going, and it got to the point where he snapped when he had that book of his life, and the guy was like, what is that, like a book of jokes? And I'm like, and I remember my girlfriend said, she said it right when he said, is that just a book of jokes? She's like, that's the book of his life. And I'm like, holy shit, and then he like blows the dude's brains out, and I was like, this wouldn't happen. But then I did remember something. This movie does take
Mm-hmm.
place in the late 70s, early 80s, and they did not have time delay for live television back then. Great example would be the tragic event of the Challenger, the space shuttle launch. Everyone saw what happened with that because there was no time delay.
Yeah.
Also, the politician, I believe he was the treasurer, Bud Dollar, when he committed suicide
Yeah.
on live
Yep.
television, that was also live on television because they didn't have time delay. So the more I thought about it, I was like, okay, well,
Or the
yeah,
Christine Chubbuck case.
yeah. I was like, okay, this makes a little bit more sense. But when I first saw that, I was kind of like, what? No, no, no.
Well, there's several times too, if you remember, I guess the a producer asks for the show for them to cut him off,
Yeah.
and De Niro refuses. And I think also part of that is that character, that talk show host's hubris going into overdrive, thinking that he can nail this guy himself
Mm-hmm.
because he starts interrogating him. I mean, he doesn't decide to, everyone's like, shut off, but he decides to try to confront him and go after himself, which ends up, killing him in the end.
Yeah. Now, another thing I wanted to talk about, because this is something I feel like it's really separated the moviegoers that know Batman and the comic readers that know Batman. I feel like this is something, and
Okay.
I know this is Joker, but this is something I feel like that really separate a lot of people because one of the reviews that I saw of this guy, he did a Joker review, and one of his things is he had this premeditated thought about Joker, that he was always a criminal mastermind and he falls in chemicals and turns into the Joker, and he like saw that movie and he saw the big spoiler right here, the deception of Thomas Wayne, sees the way Thomas Wayne is, and he was like, this doesn't make any sense that the Waynes would be like the villain in this movie. Like Thomas Wayne is the quote unquote bad guy. Of course, this is all through the perspective of Joker. You're watching it through his perspective. I mean, the whole movie has him in it. It's not like a build up and all of a sudden like, oh yeah, Arthur Fleck's showing up. He's always in every single shot. You're following him like you're on his shoulder. And seeing
Right.
the way Thomas Wayne is, and that just like he was like, man, it just destroys the whole origin of like Batman. I'm like, it really doesn't.
So the Waynes haven't always been portrayed as sunshines and butterflies,
Yeah.
So I don't get why that guy is in it. And in fact, it's really hard to tell with Thomas Wayne in the film if his motives are good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really tell. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah, for me, Thomas Wayne was your stereotypical politician. He was the guy that, the movie really narrows down on classism. That's classism and mental illness is the biggest narrative in Joker. And he is this politician guy. He is, like every politician looking out for the greater good for himself. So I mean like he three people in the subway get killed. He's going to get in front of the camera and talk about that. That's what turned the whole clown riot there right there. But I mean, I could see why he would be looked at as a villain, but at the same time, I was just like, I don't really see him as being a bad guy. Like he's just a politician.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's a good point. That was a weird review too that you were telling me about.
Yeah, it made no sense. It was almost like when the guy was doing the review, it was almost like he was expecting it to be based off Tim Burton's Batman. Because he was just like,
What the fuck?
yeah, because he was just like, yeah, Joker's always been, a criminal mastermind, and then he falls in the chemicals and turns into a criminal mastermind even more. And I'm just like, well, I mean, if you really look at it, the similarities between Joker and say the Killing Joke are pretty parallel. You got a failed comedian, and he has one bad day. That was in
Yep.
this case, Arthur Fleck has one bad life. Finding out that his whole life's a lie from his mom that he took care of, and no longer getting medical assistance from the system because they're pulling funds out, and at one point thought that Thomas Wayne was his dad because his mom was just completely loony and was like, "Oh, you're Thomas Wayne's son," and that was kind of it. That's when he became Joker. He was no longer Arthur Fleck anymore.
Yeah, pretty much. I agree with that. And you're absolutely right. And this guy who says that Joker's a criminal mastermind, this is the thing with DC characters, and I've explained this to you, but I think it needs to be repeat saying. Marvel characters kind of remain a little bit more static than the DC characters. Not saying that there's anything wrong with that, right? And I'm
Right.
talking about comic books. Okay, that's just how Marvel works. DC, on the other hand, they go through reboots and changes, and of Joker like Batman have existed. The insane Joker is a more modern interpretation, I would say. Going back to not really more modern. Dark Knight Returns, they still say it's modern era comic. That comic's over 30 years ago. It's not modern, guys. But that interpretation of Joker, I think they also borrowed elements from, because that Joker's purely insane. Um, but yeah, he's not the guy who just falls into the chemical vat all the time,
Yeah,
you know? And there's no defining origin for the Joker. The Joker even says in The Killing Joke, which does have an origin, he says, if I had if I had a origin, I would be multiple choice. Do you remember
exactly.
that line?
Exactly. And even that goes back to like The Dark Knight. You know, Heath Ledger's Joker, he tells three different stories about how he got the scars.
Exactly. You know, and which I know you're not a big fan of that Joker, right? Still.
Yeah, yeah. I'm. You know, here's the thing. Like, and I'll get a lot of flack for this, but uh, I know a lot of people they don't want to compare Heath Ledger to Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. Or they don't want to compare it. But I think Joaquin Phoenix like nailed it as a Joker compared to like Heath Ledger. Like I liked Joaquin Phoenix a lot more than Heath Ledger's Joker, because Heath Ledger's Joker was like pure anarchy, hired hand. You know, if you do something good, don't do it for free. You know, kind of guy, very sinister. Where Arthur Fleck, man, I mean, there was parts in that movie that he hadn't even transitioned to the Joker, and he was already the Joker. There's a scene in that movie, and there's many scenes in that movie that I feel like there's this tremendously artistic, beautiful cinematography and symbolism. You know, one of my favorite scenes is, of course, when Arthur Fleck confronts Thomas Wayne about like that they could possibly be father and son, and Thomas Wayne's like, "I am not your father," and it gets to the point where he punches him in the face. I'm like, that is totally like Batman and Joker right there. When Joker's like, "You created me," and Batman's like, "No, the fuck I didn't." That was like so much symbolism there. And also in the scene where, you know, he goes to Wayne Manor and he's looking for Thomas Wayne, and of course there's Bruce Wayne, and the only thing that separates him is the gates to Wayne Manor. And to me, that was
Oh
just
yeah.
like, I was like, oh my god, this is like Joker and Batman confronting each other in Arkham Asylum. Because
And you have your Alfred cameo too.
yeah. And I was like, oh man, this is amazing, because even young Bruce Wayne is kind of looking at him like, what the hell is wrong with you? Why are you like this?
That's yeah. He's like, what the hell? When he gives him the flowers and shit.
Yeah. I thought that was beautiful. That cinematography and that symbolism. I was like, oh man, I got goosebumps from watching that part of the movie. I was like, oh man, this is really really cool. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's got a lot of scenes. We should talk about the subway scene
Yes.
though as well. That's very important, because that subway scene is sort of a social commentary on how the media treats death and such. And it's gonna make me sound like a complete asshole. My viewpoints on it, okay, Xander?
Okay.
But that's okay. I'm already an asshole, so there you go. In the subway scene, these these guys who work for Wayne Enterprises are harassing this woman, and they start to know this Joker, and they have a confrontation where they're beating him, and then Joker kills one of them, and then he ends up killing the other two. And then all of a sudden on the media are making these guys like these were kind, gentle people, right?
Mm-hmm.
When anyone dies in the media, that's always the words. He's down to earth. He's gentle. This is where I'm going to make me sound like an asshole. No, they probably weren't. You're just saying that out of respect, and I get that. But that shows how the media treats death. Anytime a death happens, all those person's flaws are ignored and they're put on a pedestal.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
Yeah, and that's what that movie said, because those guys were not gentle souls from what we saw.
No, they weren't. And it was like, you know, that moment, I remember when that moment he killed those people, that was the first time that he did something for himself. That was the first time
Mm-hmm.
that he defended himself and stuck up for himself. And it's really weird because like when you watch the movie, you'll find yourself rooting for him, but in the back of your head, you're like, man, this is really fucked up. But when I saw him kill those people, I'm like, fuck yeah, man. You know, because they were like trying to rape that chick, and he wasn't, he wasn't trying to do it. He was trying to, just not even look. He wasn't trying to be involved in it. Like Arthur was just like, man, I just got fired from my job. I don't even want to be involved in this. But he has that laughter. He starts laughing because he's got bad anxiety. He starts laughing about it, and that's when it draws attention to him, and they start trying to, poke fun at him and start beating him up. And that's when he uses that gun, which I will say, getting into some of our favorite parts of the movie. One of my favorite parts of the movie is actually when he gets the gun because of his sign being stolen in the beginning of the movie. He gets the gun from one of the guys that he works with. And
Right.
he has the gun in his pocket when he's dancing and doing his little show for the children's hospital, and it falls out of his jacket, and he picks it up and he's got kind of he puts his finger up to something like shh, shh, like don't say anything. That part, I saw that and I was just like, oh god, this is kind of funny.
It is, and it's sad too at the same time, which is crazy, which is what the point of the Joker is.
Yeah.
There's a scene. I got a little pissed off because of the audience, but not the movie itself, but with the way the audience reacts. There's a scene where I agree with you that your scene was funny, but there's a scene where the guy who gives Joker the gun, Joker kills him, and there's
Yeah.
that little guy, and
Hmm.
he freaks out, and everyone thought it was funny because it was it he was trying to unlock the door, and he just happened to be a little person,
Yeah.
and I didn't find it funny. I found it a guy terrified for his life, man.
Yeah. But you know what? When I saw that scene, I'm like, this is classic Joker.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that like that was just very, very Joker like. That Joker would let, someone escape like that but have to fight for it in that regard. That scene
And
was
that's
that
and
scene was fucked up.
yeah, and people were laughing in the audience because I went to go see it in the theaters.
Mhm.
What the hell, you know?
Yeah.
It just, yeah, it just was really fucking weird. But anyway, that scene was really good, and it showed that Joker had a little bit of humanity in him
Mhm.
still, because he's all, you're the only one who was really kind to me.
Yeah. Which I mean, a lot of people don't realize. I mean, Joker is a bad guy and he's insane, but Joker has done, some things in the comics that you're just kind of like, what the fuck, Like he's done like little things like that too. Um, I mean,
Yeah, you know what? Oh, go ahead.
no, 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 go ahead.
Okay, so there's a debate in Killing Joke where this is going to be pretty fucked up, but we're talking about a fucked up movie as it is anyway.
Yeah,
Joker cripples Batgirl, right?
right.
And then he strips her of her clothes and he takes photographs of her.
Hmm.
People think that Joker raped her. I don't think he did, because this is going to, I'm not condoning any of this or any of that, but what I'm saying is that would have been too straightforward for the Joker to do.
Yeah,
It would have made, I'm not condoning rape. It would have made kind of sense, but he didn't do that. He just took the pictures and that was that. That's because that's how the Joker thinks. It's not something you would expect him to do.
yeah. No, no, I agree. Like when it comes to that scene, I always thought that he just did it for the shock value.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it had, yeah, and that's how I look at this Joker. This Joker does a lot of things that don't make sense. You know? Like when he literally confesses in the going back to the interview, you know?
Hmm.
Or when it's revealed that, he was never dating that woman in the first place. And he just went into her apartment for comfort, but why would he when she existed in his head?
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the most heaviest superhero movies I've seen in a very long time. I wouldn't
I
even.
agree.
I don't even know if I would even classify it as a superhero movie. Uh, because when people hear superhero movies, they think of MCU. But yeah, it was really heavy. Now let me ask you this
Yeah.
before we get into our like a score that we would give this movie. Uh, there's always the possibility, even though they said this is a one time movie, that they're not going to expand in this. But if they did expand it, and we had Batman, how do you think Batman would fit in this world of Joker? Do you think he would?
I honestly don't know, and I hope they don't. I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know. I think they should not make a sequel to it.
Yeah, because I feel like it would lose some of its charm if they started building on top of it. Uh, and the kind of movie it was, like I can't imagine a guy dressed as Batman in that movie.
Yeah.
It would have to be
Yeah,
the
I agree.
it would have to be the most different Batman that moviegoers have ever seen. And when I say that, it would have to be a Batman that doesn't have a utility belt that has everything. He wouldn't have a Batmobile. He would be just a straight up vigilante if he was in that movie.
Yeah, I really don't know. And again, I kind of hope they leave it standalone. If they make a sequel, I'll obviously go see it, but I hope they leave it as is, honestly. It's a character study of a comic book villain,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what it should be. And what the movie should do is not necessarily be part of any connected universe, but enhance your exploration of this complex character as is. You know, when you
Yeah.
go explore other Joker shows, you should think about this film and see not necessarily that other Joker's origin, but just to see how it can tie into elements of that character's mental process.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, I definitely don't. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be connected to the new Batman movie that's coming out. That's going to be completely different. And we haven't really heard too much about that, other
We got
than,
Riddler.
oh yeah, that's right. And I believe
Yeah.
Catwoman too. I think Catwoman got confirmed. I think it's Lenny Kravitz's daughter.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I heard about that.
But yeah, I'm wondering exactly what that movie is going to be about. I was telling a customer at my job, we were talking about comic book movies, and I tell him, and I stand by this. I'm always nervous when there's a new superhero movie coming out and they have a bunch of villains. That always makes me nervous.
Well, with Catwoman, that's a whole different beast.
Oh
She
yeah,
she
yeah.
can alternate. Yeah, but they only have Riddler so far, so we'll see.
Yeah, because I mean that's my thing. Like Catwoman's an exception because she's a wild card.
Yeah,
She's a wild card, and that's the reason why Batman Returns worked out so good. And they had Penguin and Catwoman. It worked out because she was kind of like the anti-hero in certain aspects, but she still gave Batman some problems. But when you have like Two-Face, the Riddler, and then Batman and Robin had Bane, Poison Ivy, Mr. Freeze, and Spider-Man 3 had Hobgoblin, Sandman, Venom. It gets too much. It's way too much.
yeah, I agree. I agree 100% with that.
So wrapping up the show, Anthony, what would you give Joker? Like, what score would you give it? Like a 1 out of 10?
A 10, I think. I don't see any flaws in that movie myself.
Yeah, same. At first, I thought the last scene with the talk show, I thought that was going to be kind of, like, it took me a while, and I'm glad we kind of waited before we made this podcast talking about it, because at first I was like, that's what gives it a 9. I was just like, because that just wouldn't actually happen. That's just I felt like it took because the movie isn't that realistic, but it took what realism it had and kind of made it more Hollywood at that point. But then started really thinking about it. I'm like, oh no, that actually makes sense. So yeah, I definitely give it a 10.
Yeah. Yeah, great movie. If you haven't seen it and you decide to spoil it yourself, go see it, because this is what I believe with spoilers. Even if you spoil yourself on the movie, it's not the same as watching it.
Yeah, we talked about this movie for, almost an hour. We talked about it, but even like the stuff that you and I have talked about, I'm like thinking about it in my head, and it's still not doing the movie justice. There's still so many elements to this movie that I feel like that if you haven't seen it and you already know about it, like, oh, I already knew about this scene, I already know about that, you need to go see it, because it's definitely, in my opinion, it's one of the best movies we've had in a very long time when it comes to just
Agreed.
modern cinema. It's that good.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that it made as much money, because the superhero audience is not. They like dumb fun. This is not dumb fun. Although there were controversies around it, I guess so.
I believe a lot of the controversy was built up publicity, though. I really do.
Yeah.
I was like,
so
I was telling a lot of people, it was just kind of like one person was in the media chair, and you're like, you know what? Let's stir some controversy. This is going to make people go crazy, and then everyone fed into it. I really don't think it's that bad.
No, I agree with you, 100%. So Xander, what I was gonna say is, while we finished the Joker, our next show is our anniversary show, right?
Indeed.
We have something special planned. We kind of changed our plans from what we wanted to do because of some technical issues. We may still do it someday, right?
Yeah.
But we think what we have planned is special enough for us, and it'll really, really be a lot of fun, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. Do you have anything to say about our anniversary show?
It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's crazy to think we've been doing this for a year now.
I know, 1 year since our first Castlevania episode, and still no season 3. What the hell is it?
Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah, who knows?
But,
oh well.
Yeah,
what can you do?
Yeah. But anyway, guys, I think this is going to wrap up another episode of Blast Podcasting. And again, if you guys are listening to us on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, iHeartRadio, you can check out our archive episodes on our YouTube channels. And I'll have all that in the link in the description below to this episode. And as always, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll be blasting off to the next episode.